Thanks for joining me on this one. This is going to be an interesting podcast. We're talking to Daniel Bentson from Home Insurance Agency. A couple things to listen for. I guess there's no traditional way into the insurance industry, but this dude, insurance royalty. If you listen to where his family comes from and how he got into where he's at now and what he's doing with a very specialty niche. Also, listen for with that niche how he's thinking about automation and AI as a way to improve process inside of it. It's really interesting when you niche how focused you can be on that. And then lastly, do agencies have souls? Can you automate or use AI to create soul? It's an interesting question, and it goes to the value prop as agents think about automation, AI, and APIs on how and where it should happen. And of course, that's what we're doing at Be Atomic. We, with Service Center, we plug in and automate remarkets and endorsements and changes so that by separating service and process, you can focus on the things that matter the most, which are relationships. And so Daniel's got that in his model. It's an interesting conversation, and it fits hand in glove with the kind of things that we're solving at Be Atomic. So enjoy this one. Yeah. Yeah. We just roll right into it. So, Daniel Bentson from Home Insurance Agency. Thanks for taking the time to talk to us. Appreciate you having you on.
No, thank you so much for having me on. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, it's not often we get to speak with someone who's got insurance royalty. I'd love to start with your family history on insurance. And for anybody who's listening to this cliffhanger, it doesn't go where you think it goes for Daniel when he starts. So, Daniel, if it's possible to have
Yeah.
royal insurance lineage, I think you've got it. How did this all come about?
Yeah, I always joke that I had no option but to get into insurance. And the reason
Yeah.
why is on my mother's side, her mom, my grandmother, had her own insurance agency.
Yep.
My grandfather, my dad's dad, on my dad's side, he had his own insurance agency.
That's impossible right there.
Yeah. And it gets even better. My mom and dad met at the College of Insurance downtown Manhattan back in the 80s.
Yeah.
So my mom went and worked for Marsh McLennan, and my dad went into my grandfather's insurance agency with his two other brothers. So I always joke with people, I had no other option but to get into insurance. I started working with my dad, gosh, when I was 6, 7 years old. And that's all I've done. Every summer break I had from school, went into the office. I did the file cabinets. Of course, they were very paper driven
Yep.
agency. This is all the pre-paper, during the paper days. And, I was one of those kids growing up that said, I want to go into insurance. I kind of had no other option.
Well, and what I love about this is like, I mean, talk about a perspective. So your mom's at Marsh McLennan. So she's working with one of the biggest brokerages in the world, probably working on the biggest policies, the most complex solutions, all that stuff. No disrespect to dad if he's listening, but like then you're at an independent agency, a family owned second generation or third generation agency where you're literally filing. I mean, what was dinner like when those two started talking?
I will say one thing. My parents did a very good job when they raised us. When it came to dinner in life, they really did not talk about work that much.
Okay.
When they would answer it. They were, it's something I'm trying to model as well. It's hard to do because I'm very passionate about insurance,
I love it.
but they always did a very, very good job, at least at the dinner table with the kids, keeping it private. No, they, when I did ask them about it, they would absolutely answer any of my questions. Both my parents, it's odd to say that you could say both your mom and dad are
Yep.
great mentors for the insurance space, but I kind of see where my mom was with what she was with Marsh McLennan, working on some of these massive multi-million to billion-dollar commercial accounts with her
Yeah.
team. To my dad, that would just serve the fireman or the policeman or the teacher looking for home and auto insurance. So you get two completely different separate segments, but it was very good in education.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting about that is a lot of people always pine for what they didn't do. Like if they went small town local agency, they always dream of the big leagues. If they went to the big leagues, they always opine about would it be nice
Yeah.
to have a small agency on Main Street? And you got to see both of those,
Yeah.
the ups and downs, the goods and the bads of both of those. So obviously then you went to insurance college yourself, you graduated and went into them, but that's not how it goes, right?
Yeah, that's the interesting part. I actually have the story, long story short, I struggled academically. I didn't get into any of the colleges that I wanted to get into. So I just went to community college, and 2 days a week I went to school. 3 days a week I went to the office with my dad. So at 18 years old, I was full blown working with him 3 days a week. But the most valuable thing he ever did, this is the best college course you'll ever get. He brought me to all the insurance company agent meetings. So I met with marketing reps. I was going out to real estate functions because we niched in like property insurance.
Right.
So on all these different realtor functions in our community, out with different marketing reps for insurance companies, meeting with presidents of insurance companies. So from 18 to 22, my college days,
A PhD in being a
PhD in
professional agent.
insurance.
Yeah.
Yeah. So by the time I was graduated college, I had a wealth of information. I had a network already built up. I had a license. So by the time I was 22, when all my friends were trying to figure out what to do with life, I was already
Going.
fully into my industry and fully doing my thing. So, I'm blessed. I don't take it for granted. And, we just hit the ground running with that. So it was a lot of fun.
So, okay, so one more cliffhanger for anybody who's following the journey so far. So then the obvious thing was father at some point comes along and retires and says, "Hey, son, I want you to take the business." But it's also not how it went for you.
Yeah, I wish it did. Me and my father always talked about that. But my dad, very important here, he co owned the agency, two other partners, which was my uncles and his brothers. So partnerships in family business, I'll let you guys
Talented.
decide if you think it's the best for you. But for our particular situation, they voted to sell. So they sold to a PE equity firm.
Yep.
So this was in 2018. So I was left with the decision. Am I going to work for this firm, or with all the contacts and experience I have, am I going to take the leap of faith and start up my own agency? I started, Scott Howell, I think would call it less than scratch,
Yep.
one computer, one state, just all by myself. And started April 5th, 2018. And the rest has been kind of history, niched on property insurance. And we just kind of do what we do.
I love that. I love that because I'm a scratch guy too. So like I knew when we first started talking that I would enjoy that conversation. But I think I think what's important about the rest of this session is the perspective you have here. So, you saw a family owned agency, multi-generational, it exits. It is there's no retirement plans and partnerships, right? It's got to go somewhere. And PE is a great option for that. Mom's at large brokerage and has a career there.
Yeah.
And when having to make that choice of going to join the firm that that it was sold to or going scratch, you went scratch. And I think what's interesting about that is probably for the first time on your own, now you had to think about systems and processes and
Oh,
appointments and even focus a niche. And I love, and maybe this is a great time to talk a little bit about home insurance agency.
yeah.
You went super niche, you went super up and down the coast. Talk a little bit more about that. And then that'll kind of go into systems and processes and where we like to spend time on this podcast, but love to hear more about that.
Absolutely. So first off, hence a really dumb name, home insurance agency. Obviously,
You
we
knew
niche on
exactly what you do. Mine was called Zinc and nobody knew what it was. So I think you win there.
Yeah, so if I go to a networking event and they ask who I am and who I work for, I say home insurance agency. Right off the bat, they know what I do.
Yep.
So we obviously hyper niche in homeowner insurance, investment properties, condos, and flood insurance. That's it. That's basically all we do.
Now you
We
said you had like 5 auto policies. Like you have
Yeah, I
like
think we have a
yeah,
collective total of 5 auto policies. I think I'm one of them, and I think
yeah.
one of my employees is the other one. So you get the idea. And then we have
You'll
a
know the
couple of
loss ratio, who's responsible, right?
Yeah. So we're very blessed. We have an incredible network of loan officers, realtors, real estate attorneys, and we drive in quite a few leads per month. And we're writing from Connecticut all the way down to Georgia. So I started with just myself, and then my brother eventually came on. He quit his job and he joined the fund later in 2018. And from 2018 till about 2020, end of 2020, we were just growing extremely rapidly. It's just me and my brother.
Yep.
And we had an opportunity to expand down into South Carolina. I call him a cousin of mine. He married my cousin, so it's all collectively family.
Yeah.
He was struggling with his own line of work, and he approached us and he said, "Hey, I'd love to quit my job and work for you." I thought he was joking, and a couple of weeks later, he essentially did that. So
No
uh,
pressure there.
yeah, no pressure there. And you know what? When you go through life, it's interesting because sometimes being naive, but having a go getter spirit
Yep.
sometimes could work out. And I had no idea about the South Carolina market. I just assumed it was like the Northeast.
Yep.
So, January 2021, we opened up a shingle in an office down in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina, right outside of Charleston. And we only had one appointment at the time. And long story short, we just started banging on doors like we did in the Northeast. And over time, we realized we needed a few carriers. And what thankfully worked out was it was a soft market. So you
Yeah.
reached out to an insurance company. I at least
You were
had
getting
a track
appointed.
record from the
Yeah.
Northeast. I had this insurance royalty knowledge and whatever you want to call it. And it was able to open up a few extra doors, thank God. And We were able to get appointment with some good companies. And yeah, we've been doing extremely well since January 2021. We're going to be adding on a third employee down there in that office. And we have our office still up in New York, in New Jersey. In all 8 states that we write in, we predominantly write a lot of coastal business. So
Yeah.
that kind of protects and shields us against the bundle package. If you're sitting more in Ohio or Pennsylvania, for those listening there and wondering how the heck do you retain this business, a lot of it predominantly is it's not all flood based business. It's near the coast, so you are shielded by people that are trying to bundle. And
Well, and I think
yeah, it works. We're over 10,000 clients, 17
it's
million in
incredible.
premium, and 3 million in revenue. So things are trending in the right direction.
I would say so. So now you get down to a startup focused on a very specific niche in a really specific region
Mhm.
that's wrought with challenging. If there's an unautomated part of home insurance, it's probably coastal, right? If it's unautomated, it's probably flood and wind and stuff like that. So, and now in many cases, you're not talking about standard line companies. You're talking about E&S or MGA or brokerage or whatever it is. It's like, so niche is great. And you've done awesome with 10,000 clients in such a short time. But now you're building this agency from scratch, very specific niche, a very specific region with all sorts of problems. So I guess from a technology standpoint, has the journey been as easy as it sounds from a production standpoint?
You know what's funny? I view all of our mistakes as very expensive college courses.
Yes, that's true. You pay for an education one way or another, right?
Yeah, 100%. So I went from literally printing out paper and having files in my desk,
Yeah.
no CRM system. I had a management system, no VoIP, no texting, no any backend. It was bad.
Yeah.
So over the course of the years, and thank God for just the first off the network that's out there on the different platforms, the
Yeah.
different groups that are on Facebook. The ability of reaching out to like a Seth or Bradley Flowers or any of these guys or Ryan Hanley and just being like, hey, I just get 5 minutes of your time.
Yeah.
And I reached out to Matt and Zach up in Massachusetts,
Oh,
and
yeah.
they did give me some little basic nuggets here and there. And you just kind of pick and choose what you like from everyone, and then you just start implementing it. And even if you implement it, just because it works for them doesn't mean it's going to work for us, and vice versa. So we did have to kind of revamp, and I still feel like even in year 7, we're still revamping the wheel quite a bit all the time.
Yeah, that doesn't change. I think what's different now, though, and maybe this is a good place to pivot, is now we've got this dynamic coming in where 7 years ago, this was paper and people and
Yep.
relationships, right? That was it. And you've got more personality than any one man should have. So, like, I'm guessing sales is something that just comes natural to you, let alone you were trained in it. Fast forward to today, though, and people are harder to get.
Mhm.
Processes seem to have gotten worse, not better. Technology is disparate. And now we've got this thing called intelligence and AI
Yeah.
and automation. So there's this moment now where there's a shift happening. And when you think about that shift, what does that, as the owner of an agency, what does that kind of do to your mindset? And how are you kind of dipping your toes in that pool to kind of hopefully improve things?
Yeah, it's very interesting right now. I think it's very important for any agent not to have their head in the sand. I think you
Yeah.
should be reading anything and everything. Just be extremely knowledgeable of it. Can you get away right now not having it? Sure, but not much longer. I
Not
do
much
think
longer, right?
not much longer, very important. I do think that very, very shortly, probably within the next 1 to 2 years, a lot more agents and not just that companies are going to start utilizing it. I
Yeah.
think we have to start working hand in hand with AI. I don't think it's fully replacing like the current staff you have. If anything, you might, as I've always joked, AI might replace the people that stink or suck at their job.
Yep.
um, I think it's more important than ever to align yourself with there's so many different AI companies out there. You have to really look at your processes. What are the little minute stuff, tasks that you could delegate off? How can you enhance your current processes with AI? And I'm very keen on relationship. So one thing, and I think Seth brought it up early in this conversation, is very important is AI cannot really doesn't have a soul. So it's
Yeah.
not going to sit and be like, Seth, how are you doing today? I'm so
Right.
sorry about your family. I think that is going to be the most important thing for us agents long term is we're going to be more of the soulful people that actually care for the clients, care for the relationships. But like if they ask for a change request or a mortgagee update, honestly, you don't need a soul for that.
Yeah.
So that's where AI and technology that will take over that over. And I think we have to almost start becoming personalities, if you want to call it that, and soulful people that just truly generally care about their clients and their relationships. I think
Yeah.
that is the future of insurance, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I know a thing or two about insurance, and I can
Mhm.
imagine yours, tough marketplace, high
Yeah.
value, people are stressed about it, deadlines, mortgages, closing a house, whatever. Relationship is I hear you, I can get this done. And that's what they remember. Price is important, but like, let's face it, if it's a tough market or it's a tough, it's a tough region, whatever, you're going to get what you get on that. But the stickiness of the business is that interaction I had. Yes, I understand you're in a rush. Yes, I understand this is a big investment. Yes, I've talked to your bank and all that stuff. That's the stuff that really sticks. However, our people seem to have less and less time to do that because of all of the repetitive processes that come with it. And I
Yes.
would imagine that the processing on your side is even, I'll say it might even be more difficult than an average agency because of all the people involved. No?
Yes, I would 100% agree. Right now, we were in a really hard market, but we're starting to come into it's weird. It's hard and soft at the same time. You do have limited capacity in certain zip codes, but some other companies started coming to play, and affordability is starting to become a serious situation here. So a lot of people are calling us on renewal. Hey, can you reshop our policy? Hey, we're refinancing, or we need a HELOC. So our hamster wheel, I call it, is running at 100 miles per hour with all just the amount of clients that we have, the amount of requests that we're getting in. So yeah,
Which burns your people's soul, doesn't it?
it does. That
Yeah.
100% does. So
Yeah.
I feel like to some extent you got to sit down with your staff and be like, hey, let's look at what you're doing. What are some ways that we could really implement AI or some processes or VAs or whatever you need to do to kind of have them focus on more money making tasks and delegate off those other smaller items.
It's crazy. Our service center product, we watch tens of thousands of cases come through from our agent customers, and it has become clear that almost 7 out of 10 requests are remarkets.
Yeah.
For all the things you talked about, 1, I saw a mascot say I could save money. 2, my
Yeah.
bank says it's a problem. 3, I can't afford it anymore, and this remarket process is something that we didn't see coming, and the fact that carriers have just driven us all into portals where we have to repeat the same process over and over again, same form, same stuff. It's like our people are finding most of their time is spent on that, and it's less and less time on the thing that you said matters the most, which is soul.
Yes, I agree with that. And it's getting harder to be soulful and nice to people with when they're calling in with 30% increases. But yeah, that is a big challenge right now. And it's not just us. I think it's any agency. If they're saying they're not having that issue, I don't think they have a lot of clients. So it is very, very interesting. I do find ourselves trying to educate people more. And we have our sales producers trying to spend more of that time educating what exactly is going on, writing up very descriptive emails outside of talking to them on the phone and sympathizing with them. Also sending them educational pieces that we could also just contact them and email them about so they could review and hopefully understand. You're not going to keep everybody in this market, but it's a game of numbers. So you have to continuously educate and just show people that you care, and that is something that's very important.
Do you think, and you're dealing with niche carriers, so I'm interested in your opinion here. Do you think carriers understand how much work is involved in that? I mean, truthfully, there are a lot of great people at carriers trying to solve really big problems, but when you think about like insurance carrier underwriters, every underwriter has a different $1 million question or concern. You think about post bind inspections. You think of all of that stuff that is part of the sale, but they never necessarily see how much goes in. Do you think there's a disconnect on how much we have to handle the process and how unautomated it is from a carrier perspective?
Yes, I really
Okay.
firmly do believe that.
Yeah.
I tell my marketing reps all the time, if you ever want to come sit down next to me throughout the day and see why I'm starting to get gray hairs on the side of my head, I'll show you. Fortunately, it is becoming um, much more difficult, right? I get it. Insurance companies, they got to do their inspections, they got to check the roofs, they got to really do a second eye on these risks because there was a couple really unprofitable years there.
Yeah.
So it's hard because I kind of get both sides of the coin. They're told from their people up above that are sitting in the ivory towers, trying to max out my shareholder wealth and we need to grow, grow, grow. But at the same time, we have so much on our plate as is. I do firmly believe a lot of marketing reps and company people just lose perspective on that, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I don't think either side is right or wrong or bad people. I think there's just been a lack of conversation, and that's really what we're trying to say here is, hey, independent agents and independent carriers have the shared customer. Independent carrier, you're making a $400 million investment in a system. Hey, I've got my systems here. If these things aren't talking together, if we don't integrate, if we don't lower the cost per transaction, if we don't make this stuff smoother, you're going to burn me out. My people
Yep.
are fried. We have no soul. And all of a sudden, we're going to watch this stuff go out. And I think that's the conversation people are starting to wake up to. And I'm hoping that carriers see just how hard it is on the agency side right now.
Yeah, I agree. The marketing reps I tend to lean towards the most that I like are the ones that used to work in insurance agencies.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, because those are the ones that kind of see what we're going through, or people, even company people that used to work in agencies. Then they're like, oh, I kind of understand what you're going through. My dad always made the joke: the marketing reps that never sold a policy in their life, those are the ones that always have a harder time understanding what we go through on a day to day basis.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that in our first conversation that was interesting is you're starting to kind of pull this stuff and look at the pieces and figure out how you can solve that. So just like every other agent who might be listening to this, you're running on an AMS, right? So you've got that,
Mhm.
you've got your voice over IP system. I know they talk together, so your phones and your systems are kind of talking on that. You also mentioned that you brought in AI kind of on the answering side of business, and I'm not looking to highlight vendors specifically, but you must have said, "Hey, wait a second here. Phones are a big part of what's going on. This is an opportunity to leverage technology in a moment, maybe give people back a little time." Is that how you're thinking about that?
Yeah, I do. I'm not going to use the name, but I do use an AI company that after work hours, AI will pick up the phone. We taught it to take down intake forms and it'll email it over to us. So it does save, let's just say, the 5-10 minutes over
Okay.
the phone with our staff, especially over weekends. Instead of having 5, 6, 10, 15 voicemails of people that want homeowner quotes, we could at least walk in on Monday morning and we have basically all the intake forms filled out. That's a pretty big help for us.
That's
It also
huge.
has a chat feature side to it, so when you do get redundant questions quite a bit through email, you could always throw it into the AI chat and have it answer it, and then it'll answer on behalf. So going back to what we were talking about before, Seth, with the hand holding side by side with I think that's where, for the now, in my opinion, where it will help most agencies the most in the sense of just saving them more time. So now that we don't have to spend Monday morning calling back, playing phone tag with these people or texting or whatever, trying to get the information, we already got the information. We could at least start quoting it. And then when we do reach out to them, we could spend even more time on the phone, showing our personalities, showing our knowledge. The intake process, yeah, it's good. You could show your personality, you could show your knowledge, but it's really when you're presenting the quote to the client. That's when you're really flexing that insurance knowledge muscle. But you could get there faster using the AI.
Yeah, and it's interesting, and we're starting to hear this a lot, and it's where our business is focused too, is on the operation side. I think so much of the industry's conversation was on sales and marketing for a long time. And I get it. Independent agents are the sales engine for the independent carriers on that, right? But when we look at where the money is spent and made in a business, 94% of the revenue comes from renewing a policy, right? And
Yes.
the
Absolutely.
people, the processes, and the technology that get that done. And I think I'd be curious to hear your opinion on that. Is this where AI can help us the most? Is on the ops side? Yes, if we can make time for people, we can create all sorts of opportunity. Is that the right way to think about it?
I do. I really do. If we do less time plunking and more
Right.
time interacting and showing people that we care and that we're actually simply going through the whole process with them, simply walking them through why the policy renewal went up, why are these companies non-renewing, you know, why is this specific company better for them than this one? I think that's much better. I do think at the end of the day, that is going to separate your agency from most of the other ones that are very busy plunking and doing data entry and stuff like that.
Yeah, plunking is gonna be hard to it's gonna be hard to pay somebody 50, 60, $70,000 a
Mhm.
year to plunk keys. You can take an AI assistant can ingest the notes. You can get it into a system or a form. You can imagine now that form can connect to an API that's gonna get some sort of underwriting or pricing model on that. And so as we scale and build organizations, I think your key here, and I think it would be smart for people to listen to, is a Navy SEAL group of people that have soul and relationship and who
Yeah,
talk is going to be your forward fighting force. And wherever and however possible, if we can remove the processing from it, simplify, reduce the cost, leverage technology, that's really the model of survivability for independent distribution. Fair?
that is super fair. I agree with that. And I think if I really look out, unfortunately, into the future of insurance, I feel like just like corporations are with
Yeah.
corporate employees, I think they're just the margins are getting tighter and tighter. So if I really look at the next 5, 10, 15 years, I think it's even more important from the EBITDA side for
Yeah.
insurance agent owners to really lean into this because instead of hiring on another 2, 3, 4 employees, if you could really leverage tech, leverage CRM systems, you don't need to hire on those extra people. You could keep a really small, good core group of individuals, max out your EBITDA. Because just in case, you never know what these insurance companies have in store, whether they cut contingency, profit sharing, cutting commissions down. That's only going to make you more profitable moving forward.
Yeah, I wanna talk about that, but I can't not think about every year we get a profit sharing contingency statement from one of our carriers, and they would have their biggest expense issue was agents, right? They would list it on
Oh,
their expenses, and we were their biggest expense on that, so I always get a
yeah.
kick out of that, but it's interesting that you point to EBITDA, especially as a startup guy, because you saw that when the family business. So you also part of your master class was watching the value, how agencies are valued. So is it fair to say that a lot of your decision making on process, on technology, and how you're viewing the future is based on that experience of watching multiple on EBITDA conversation with dad and uncles?
Oh, yeah. I heard my dad talk about that and uncles all the time,
Yeah.
especially with them leading up to
Yep.
the sale. Because that's what at the time, and they still do, all the PE firms really hone in on. So I felt like, it was something I didn't, I heard it, but I didn't really lean into it. Now, trust me, I'm talking about it and thinking about it all the time. Is how to like maximize out the employees that you have. Do we need to add on more? Do we subtract? Where do we invest? Where do we not invest? And yeah, no, I definitely got the masterclass on that early from my dad and uncles because yeah, they do deep dive. From what I saw with them, and again, this was 7 years ago, and I know it's changed a lot
Yep.
from them from when they sold. But I will say they were really honing in on what does this department do? What do they bring in revenue wise? What does this department do? What does this guy do? What is this person's value? What is their book size? So yeah, no, it's all stuff that is 100% real, and I think that all owners should really be honing in on. Because here's the deal: even if you don't plan on selling anytime soon, eventually something's going to happen in life. You know what I mean? Whether you hand it off to somebody or you sell internally to the team, you need to know where your numbers are at. You need to know where you're losing money, where you're gaining money, who's valuable, who's not. Kind of like a sports team. They do the same thing. We're no different than that.
You're preaching to the choir. I think I know I'm the guy that invented cost per transaction that, hey, like, listen, every 10,000 clients equals 30,000 processes. Each process is handled by somebody or something, and that has a unit increment cost. And if I can reduce the cost of the processing and increase the value, not only do I get EBITDA gain, but I also get retention gain, customer experience gain, and all that stuff.
Yep.
And so I think, moneyballing of independent agencies is critical now because we know that net cash EBITDA is what everyone's going to value it on. We have this intrusion slash opportunity of low cost servicing or processing that's finding its way into the industry. And to your point, agents need to be focused on this very short window where there will be outsized opportunity gains for people who are thinking and acting along these ways. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think that's exactly what you're saying. So, okay, this is a magic wand, and I'm giving it to you. 1, 2, 3 years out, this is coming. Where are you looking at your business and saying, like, okay, Seth just gave me the magic wand. I know this is coming. Here's where I'm going to really ask for a miracle or focus my time and attention. What advice do you have for agents, or even what are you focused on that you'd share that says, hey, in this short window where it matters so much, these are the things that I'm prioritizing?
Yeah. I want to keep leaning into AI. I really do think it's going to allow our firm to maintain our staff pretty much reasonably
Yeah.
sized that we're at right now. We're a total of 10 employees. I would love to, in 3 years from now, if anything, have 10 employees or maybe 11. I don't really want to blow it up
And triple the clients.
and triple the clients.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in a perfect world, a magic wand,
Yeah.
I would love to really lean into AI to do a lot of the minute work that my team is doing and just allow us to continue being the personalities that we are in the phone. Because another thing that we do extremely well here is just generating current client referrals. We're talking about loan officers and realtors. referring us in many leads per month. But the more we've learned you're interactive with your clients, showing them that you care, educating them, setting them up with the right policy. And, God forbid when the big claim happens, which it's not a matter of if, it's just when,
Yep.
and they see that they are covered correctly, people's mouths don't stop. Whether it's online or in person with people, they will talk about you. You will create raving fans. And I really do think at the end of the day, that word of mouth will drive in even more business because of those meaningful conversations that you are having with people. How do you keep up with all of the influx? That's where the tech stack and the AI will assist, and that will help an agency, like you just said, triple. So I would like to just in a perfect world next 3 years, just continue to lean into AI. Hopefully, just and it will continue to develop, speed up quoting, speed up customer service, or the cost per transaction. I think what Seth just said there is so important. Yeah, we talked about EBITDA, but that is just as important too. How much time is your salespeople or your customer service rep people taking on doing I'm just saying, a vehicle change request, a mortgagee change request, all the plunking data information. But the most valuable thing you could ever do is be on the phone with a client, just saying, how you doing? How's your family doing? I know it sounds silly, but that means a lot to people, especially in this day and age. People don't do that as much anymore.
I
And
don't.
and when you show that soul side, that means a lot to them. Listen, when you have a good experience at a restaurant or at a shopping mall store, I know for me, I go home to my wife and wow, that waitress or server or him or her, whatever it is, they did a phenomenal job. I highly recommend going back there and asking for John Smith. So that is true. It's real. We're human beings, right? We're all connected soul wise. So I do think it's very important to lean into that. And in a perfect world, that's what I would love to dive into even more.
Yeah, I think you did hit it right there. I think independence is the choice to operate how you want to operate, and you very
Mhm.
clearly architected what matters to you, and you're leveraging tools and process and technology to do what drives value, which to you is relationship and so on. I think that's a playbook that any agent would be smart to copy. And I think to your point, everybody can do it differently. Everyone has their own way of doing it.
No,
But if you stick to that recipe, it's like the Nestle's Toll House cookie. Like, I had a million chocolate chip cookies, but you know what? That little 7 ingredient recipe on the back of that bag, it never goes wrong. And
yep,
I think your advice is kind of the Nestle's Toll House for how we look at this stuff going forwards. I appreciate you dedicating your time. I know you've got a busy
anytime.
week, the rest of the week. So thank you for taking the time. Thanks for lending your story to this. And yeah, we look forward to following the journey. It'll be good to see you continue to succeed.
Absolutely. And I want to thank you very much for having me on. If anyone ever wants to reach out to you, reach out to me, I should say, I'm here. I'm an insurance nerd. I love to chat about it. Love to brainstorm with people. I already do that with a few other agents.
Yeah, take him up on that. He dropped names of people he reached out to. You should reach out to Daniel for sure. I appreciate it, Daniel. Thanks very much. Have a great day.
Thank you very much.